At Charity Charge, our mission is to power yours. Most banks and financial service providers weren't built for nonprofits. They don't understand your structure or how you operate. That's why we exist. We proudly serve more than 3,000 organizations across the U.S., offering tools built exclusively for the sector. From credit cards and expense management to bookkeeping and gift cards, every solution is designed to help you minimize operations and supercharge your impact. And we're more than just financial services. We're an educational community. We share resources every day on our podcast, blog, and webinars to help you stay informed, compliant, and empowered. Visit charitycharge.com to learn more and join the community.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Garton, founder of Charity Charge. Today on the Charity Charge Show, I am so excited to have Cindy Court, who is the CEO of TGR Foundation, which is a Tiger Woods charity. Cindy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Stephen. Glad to be with you.
Absolutely. And first and foremost, I wanted to acknowledge that you all are celebrating 30 years in operation at the TGR Foundation. So congratulations to you. And in this episode, I want to talk about the history of the incredible work that you've done over the past 30 years. But that is really a remarkable feat.
Yeah, we're really excited. There's lots of great things to celebrate over the last 30 years, but there's even more to celebrate about what's going to happen in the future.
That's awesome. Before we go too much deeper, I did want to highlight because you have such an incredible nonprofit background. Both I'm just getting to know you, but, I believe likely speaks to your character and the values and who you are as a person. But I would like to just read off a little bit of what I've pulled together and, some of this in researching you and TGR Foundation. But you have more than 25 years of experience, education, youth development, marketing, and fundraising with individuals, foundations, and corporations. And just some of the highlights prior to taking on this role as CEO of TGR Foundation, Cindy was Chief Development Officer at Berry College, and she also had roles as Chief Marketing and Development Officer at Special Olympics International and Executive Vice President, Resource Development and Marketing at Boys and Girls Club of America. That's pretty impressive, Cindy. Those are some large nonprofit organizations doing incredible work, and they're really run like probably Fortune 500 companies with the scale that those organizations have.
Yeah, I've been very blessed to work for organizations that have incredible missions, incredible leadership, and are making an incredible impact. So all of that really prepared me well for what Tiger was trying to do.
And what are, if it's 30 years, if we do the simple math, the TGR Foundation was started in 1996. So bring us back to its history, its founding, and we can get into the details, but can you talk to us, at a high level over the decades, the past 3 decades, how has it evolved its impact? And to what also are some of the newer initiatives that the foundation has been taking on under your leadership?
Great. Well, I do think it's a very authentic story of growth and going deeper. And so the foundation started, again, you said in 1996, when Tiger really just started playing professionally. So he was young. His father and his mother had a great sense of giving back, and their motto as a family was sharing and caring. And so from the very beginning, his dad and his mom encouraged him to set up the foundation and to think about what he was going to do off the course. And I do, from stories I've heard, I never got a chance to meet Earl, but I did have heard stories that I believe Earl thought Tiger would do even greater things off the course than he had done off the course. And we're starting to see a lot of that now. And so for the first 10 years, he was young, he was playing professionally. And so when he traveled around, he would do some golf clinics. He would do what you would think Tiger would do, which is try to excite and engage young people, mainly from under-resourced communities, in the game of golf and introduced the game of golf to them. And it wasn't until 20 years ago when 9/11, we all kind of paused and were reflective on what we were doing and what more could we do. And like many of us, Tiger was grounded at a golf tournament and rented a car and drove home instead of flying home. And on his drive home, as he reflected, he called his dad and said, in our family, education was a priority. I wasn't allowed to go play any sport unless my homework was done. And he said, that's not true everywhere. And that's not true of every young person. And so he said, I would love to focus the foundation on education. And I'd love to go deep in the community where I grew up. So, our very first learning lab, which is not a school, but it's very focused on education and it's very intentional in its programming, that it's not just a hangout place. It's very intentional. It's fun. Kids want to be there. But there's really structured programming that goes on, as well as fun opportunities for kids to engage in clubs with their peers. So, that learning lab is in Anaheim, California. It's been there 20 years, and it has created a model that is unique in the nonprofit sector. But most importantly, it's been impacting the lives there. So we still serve kids that go to the same high school Tiger went to. And we are physically right beside the golf course, and we partner with the golf course where Tiger learned to play golf. So it's a wonderful opportunity to give back and a very authentic story of Tiger wanting to go deep in a community where he grew up. So that was our first learning lab. Our programming has evolved over the years, Stephen, but we did develop a couple of years ago, again, very intentional, what we call a theory of change. And so it really just maps out what are we trying to do in the life of a young person so we could measure whether we were really delivering that. So Tiger, again, wanted an inspiring space that inspired kids to want to participate in things, to actually find what their passions are, to be figuratively and emotionally safe in that space. And so it felt like their own. So Anaheim is a 35,000 square foot, beautiful building with the latest technology, feels more like a higher ed, it doesn't feel like a school. And that is in an under-resourced community. And our three program pillars are STEAM educational enhancement. So we give enhancement with fun, creative, hands-on curriculum that they maybe don't get in school. So I'm a criminal minds lover. I love criminal minds. We have a forensic science curriculum. So we set up a very mild crime scene and kids get up and explore and take thumbprints. And then part of that curriculum is they learn deductive reasoning, they learn how to work in teams, they learn durable skills, but they also learn what are the careers that are available to them in forensic science. They probably know what a police officer does, but they don't know about lab technicians. So it's just a wonderful opportunity in a very fun way for them to learn and to explore and try things on. So that's
How
our
cool. I
STEAM.
wanna do that.
Yeah, it is very cool. It's one of my favorite curriculums, but marine biology, they're flying drones, they're launching rockets, they're creating robots and they're chasing them and having competition. So all kinds of really hands-on creative learning going on. And then the second pillar is health and well-being, which part of that is giving them access to maybe a sport that they don't get. So in Anaheim, that is golf. So we provide that opportunity for them to putt and to drive out the back and to come back for golf clinics on the weekends and at night. So, health and well being, which actually also includes mindfulness and just being part of a community. And then the third pillar that we are recently growing is career and college readiness. We always had a college readiness program, but over the last 2 years, we've really expanded what we're doing and how we're intentionally, especially with our teens, going deep in preparing them because ultimately our goal is to help them find their passions, graduate from high school on time with their class, and then have a actionable plan for the future that could change the trajectory of their lives. So that in a nutshell is the programming that we deliver at a learning lab. Now we deliver that at all kinds of different times. So during the day, we do it in partnership with schools as a field trip. So teachers get to bring their classes, experience the learning lab, and while the kids are having fun, the teachers are getting professional teacher education. After school, parents bring them back or they get dropped off by their school bus and they can spend the afternoons with us, which can be the most dangerous time for young people to be alone and isolated if they're home alone. And then in the summer, to prevent summer learning loss, we do summer camps free of charge all summer long. So all of our programming are free to young people that want to take advantage of them.
And talk to us as well as the foundation has grown over the past 30 years. Talk about the scale because you were mentioning this original location, right? That's very much in the geography that was home to Tiger. But as I understand it, you have other learning labs across the country and are continuing to find additional areas to put those. Was that right?
We do. So on April 1st, we opened up the doors to a 30,000 square foot building on the Cobbs Creek campus in West Philadelphia. So Cobbs Creek has such a wonderful history as a public golf course where they were always founded in inclusion. So again, another authentic Tiger story. You may have heard of a golfer, Charlie Sifford, who's the first black golfer to win on the PGA Tour. Cobbs Creek was one of the only golf courses that allowed Charlie to play there. So Charlie learned to play on the golf course where we have a learning lab. Tiger affectionately calls Charlie Grandpa Charlie, and so his son Charlie was named after Charlie Sifford. So it's another authentic story and tie to Tiger in this community. So it meant the world to him. When we cut the ribbon on September 8th, Tiger mentioned that Grandpa Charlie would have been so proud of what we're doing in that community for young people. So they will have even more access to golf on the Cobbs Creek campus in West Philly because of the Cobbs Creek campus itself. We have a simulator inside the learning lab, so when the weather's bad in the winter, they can use that simulator to practice their drives, and we've all kind of had fun watching the new TGL League that Tiger and Rory launched, so we've got our own simulators going in Philly, and then out the back, Jordan Spieth helped fund a synthetic golf a little putting course out the back. And then beyond the putting course, as part of the bigger Cobbs Creek campus, Tiger designed a 9-hole golf course. Cobbs Creek Foundation, which is an incredible group of philanthropists in the Philly area, are building a massive driving range. It's beautiful, and that was help funded by Lincoln Financial. And then they're working on continuing and finishing the funding for an 18-hole golf course and a 9-hole golf course in that community. And it's all surrounded by wonderful families and kids that can actually walk to the learning lab. So it's like the perfect place. It's extremely unique because once the golf course is fully done, some of the revenue from that golf course, the Cobbs Creek Foundation intends for that revenue to help fund the educational programs there. So a wonderful, authentic story to Tiger, to that community, and to the incredible philanthropists there in Philly. So those are our 2 open learning labs. And then as we go forward for what happens 30 years and beyond, in 2027, early in the spring, we will open up another learning lab in Los Angeles, a campus called Lulu's Place, which is a philanthropist, Doug Kimmelman. He and his family foundation and all of his kids are creating an incredible academic campus that the Chargers will have a field on, the USTA will have tennis courts on. It's an incredible athletic campus, and again, will be the education center, will be the learning lab on that campus to serve kids with educational programming. So that opens up early 2027. This hasn't been officially announced. We'll give your listeners a sneak peek, but later in 2027, we'll be opening up a learning lab in Atlanta, Georgia. We've never been in the South, and so we will be opening up one in Atlanta, which is a great technology community, great philanthropic community, but again, neighborhoods of great need. And we will be right side Atlanta, who I just met with this morning. So that's going to be a wonderful partnership. Our kids will be able to walk over to the Atlanta Tech College and maybe do some dual enrollment and go deep there. And so we're really hopeful that we'll have a partnership with that incredible institution in Atlanta as well. And then it was announced last April that early in 2028, we will be opening up a learning lab in Augusta, Georgia, thanks to Augusta National Golf Course and our partnership with them. So great partners. Tiger is obviously one person, and one person can't do everything. But Tiger and the foundation are providing all of the backroom operations, the curriculum, the training, the technical assistance, the finances, the HR, and they're going to support the backroom operations of all those learning labs. And so we're squeezing the inefficiencies out of it. So when we go into a new community, they're only helping to fund the building and the educators that teach at the learning lab. So it's a great partnership between Tiger, wonderful local philanthropists, and great corporations and foundations.
That's awesome. In the business world and of course the nonprofit world, metrics really matter and tying those to impact. What I think is really interesting about the organization as you talk about the history and where you're going in the future is what was accomplished over the first 30 years. And it sounds like getting really grounded in focus and making sure that initial location for the initial learning lab, you had a lot of lessons learned to then be at a point to think about scale. Can you just walk me through from your perspective, both from the foundation, but also your experience in the nonprofit sector? What's some of the decision making criteria or thought process that TGR or any organization could think about? And part of how I'll preface this, or sort of the lens that I'm kind of asking the question through, is at Charity Charge, we work with about 3,000 organizations. And nationwide, there's around 2 million nonprofits, including foundations. But 95% of organizations are under $1 million in revenue. And I constantly hear from, as I'm chatting with those individuals that are running organizations, let's say $1 million or less, they are so passionate about the work that they're doing, and sometimes at their what becomes their own detriment or failure is they try to scale too fast. So coming back to my question, walk us through, what you think needs to be done foundationally right before TGR, any organization can think about the scale.
So, great question. Amazing observation from the nonprofit sector, Stephen. So, you're absolutely right. We wanted to make sure that we had the model right in Anaheim. So I applaud Tiger and all those that came before me. They really worked on making sure that it was not duplicating something that already exists. And we always ask that when we go into a community. Are we replicating are we duplicating anything? We want to make sure that we're filling a need that truly exists. So we're always careful about that. So we got the model right. We got the curriculum right. What we've had to do in the last year and what we will continue to do next year as we prepare to open 3 more learning labs, is we got the technology platform right. So we're all on one platform. We introduced data analytics and outcome measurement, which had not existed in the previous 20 years. I've done a lot of measuring of programs. In the nonprofit sector, there was a lot of cry for measurable impact, and that's expensive. Longitudinal studies, sometimes the population we serve is transient. And so it's very difficult to get the data that funders and sometimes government funding require or want in order to provide funding. We've taken it to the next level. There's the Koch Foundation, KOCH, has a customer first measurement system, which allows real time pre and post and a model that we've been piloting this last year. So that theory of change that I walked you through, we have pre and post surveys to measure every element of that. So for example, our curriculums were designed to expose kids to careers. So before they take the class, we ask them the question about what they know, and then after the class, we ask them again. So whether it's a 6-week class, a summer class, or a 4-day field trip that they come to, and we're seeing measurable change in those. We measure their confidence. Are they more confident about a STEAM curriculum that they learned about? Did we broaden their perspectives? Did they feel safe in the learning lab? Did they have a mentor that cared about them? So every piece of that, including some of the more, people call them soft skills, we call them durable skills. Those are important skills for our kids to learn. So we measure every piece of that. So all of that we've been building instead of launching and then trying to pull everybody back onto one platform. So Anaheim was on a platform that could not be scaled. So we spent the year getting Philly on a platform. We've now gone back and put Anaheim on that platform. So that's the platform we'll use going forward. And it sits on top of Salesforce, which was one of the best CRMs in the market. So that's my plug for Salesforce, which they didn't even ask me to do. But a big lover of technology, so we can actually follow kids. We can track the outcomes. We can aggregate those outcomes. I think that's so important before you scale. I think it's very difficult. Also, one of the things Tiger said to me when I first started is his priority was the best in So we wanted the kids to have the best curriculum, the best opportunities, the best experiences. And you can't do that if you don't standardize what every learning lab delivers. So the leadership in Philly can't say, we want to run a baseball league. And so we're going to go and we're going to do they have to deliver the programming that we also leave room for creativity. So in Philadelphia, the community said, our kids are way behind in reading and math, and it starts in first and second grade. So we actually went back and developed a bridge program with Cobbs Creek Foundation for first through fourth graders, and we deliver that program, which we don't deliver in Anaheim, but we might need it in Atlanta. So we are also leaving room for communities to say, here's our challenges in this community, and then we listen carefully and we design it, and then we look, is it needed in the other learning labs? But it's consistent across all of our learning labs. So that forensic science curriculum is delivered
Mhm.
in Anaheim and Philly. We're working on a new curriculum with Comcast around AI, so our kids don't get left behind. It'll be piloted in Philly, but it'll be available to all of our educators nationwide.
One of the through lines that I'm hearing is your collaboration with other top tier entities, big names in the global world for that matter. You mentioned Salesforce, Comcast, and some others. How does that partnership look? Is it you coming to them coming to you? And what do you think has made, in your past experience and other roles, and then also here, what helps make a successful partnership?
You ask great questions, Stephen,
You're
because
too kind, thank you.
I think it's a really
I'm
important
always
one.
learning too, of course,
Well, because
that's the byproduct of this is I get to sit here and learn for myself.
I think it's tough for nonprofits because if there is no money, there is no mission.
Mhm.
And so having the right partners and not trying to partner with everyone. So we have partners that have come to us. We have what we like to call guiding principles. So we've also said
Mm.
no to things. We've also said, your school system in that city isn't able to provide transportation for us. So we're hopefully setting ourselves up for success by saying, like, here's the guiding principles that need to exist. Sometimes it has been serendipity. Someone's come to us and it's been a great fit. Other times people have come to us and we've regretfully had to say no. Either they're not ready or we've learned enough to know, like, this is going to make everybody's life too hard. And then really making sure that we don't have mission creep. We did that theory of change to
You
keep
took
us
the words out of my
centered.
mouth, by the way, there. Yes.
Yeah. And so we did that theory of change to ground us in what are we committed to doing. We did the outcome measurement to say, are we delivering what we said we would deliver? And we're sticking to that. Now, again, we leave room for creativity, but the core of what we do, we're going to make sure that we say no to more than we say yes to. And the bigger we get, the more awareness that's built around what we do, the more people are going to come to us. So a lot of times we do have to say no, which is so hard because usually the people that are coming to us have poured their hearts and souls into developing programs, but they may not be the programs that fit within our theory of change. So we have to say no, or it might duplicate another curriculum, or that curriculum might be too advanced for the reading level of our students that we're serving with that. So I think it's about being selective, seeking excellence, not saying yes to everything.
I think we can go deeper on that perhaps in a moment. What something I'd like to come back to that I heard, which I wasn't expecting because everything as I was learning about the foundation was around the science, technology, education, and math, right? And I always pronounced it STEM, but I think you called it STEAM. Is that right?
I did.
And I don't know
two
what it
years
is. I'm going to call it STEAM now.
Yeah, so 2 years ago, scientists and the technology people may have a problem with me on this one, but we added the arts. And
Excellent. Okay. Excellent.
here's why we added
I'm
the
glad I
arts.
asked then because I
Yeah.
good.
So when we talked to some of the leaders in technology from a corporate standpoint, and AI was evolving over the last 2 years, it's exploded. We were hearing a lot that some of the early coding, some of the things that traditionally kids had to learn to go this pathway were actually going to be, at least a little bit covered by AI. So some early coding AI can help with that. What we were hearing over and over and over again is one of the best things we can give our kids is creativity and curiosity. And so we really felt like the arts had a place in how do we also make sure that that right side of their brain, how are they curious? It's important to entrepreneurship. It's important to like what's new in technology. How can I be the next leader that develops the next thing? So we want to cultivate this sense of curiosity and creativity, which we feel like the arts has a place in that. So we do have a music production instructor up in Philly, and he does that, plus he does podcasting. So we have to have you come as a guest speaker. So our kids are learning how to podcast, but they're learning how to write the content and how to bring guest speakers in and how to market. And so, as part of our career programming, our Anaheim kids took over our social channels. And so they had what we call a studio and a small group of kids who had already taken the curriculum. They are now like basically the marketing department for the Learning Lab in Anaheim. And so they're learning hands on work experience in the Learning Lab.
That's awesome. I would love to get involved. We'll follow up on that. When you talked about arts, it brings me back to something that you said, which really caught my attention, was the soft skills. There's so much that I see out there, and my wife and I had our first child about 4 months ago. So I'm even more so really trying to think of what are the best models and how do I prepare my child for the world coming. Obviously, technology, it's a huge thing, right? And we're inundated with it. Okay. And there's also a whole movement around how much screen time children should have.
Yeah.
But you talked about the soft skills, and there's probably not enough conversation around that. But you also talked about the measurement. Now, I know maybe I'm putting you on the spot, but in what ways are you teaching soft skills, and how can you measure soft skills? I almost feel like in some ways it's an oxymoron. So I'm just curious, or not that it's like ironic to mention it. So I'm just curious if you could talk about the soft skills piece, because there is obviously a lot of great initiatives out there around STEM, right? You're doing STEAM, but here you are talking about these soft skills. So talk to us about why Tiger and the foundation believes that soft skills are a vital component as well.
Yeah, so it's built into every programming, and we actually say, like, this curriculum teaches this, not just outcomes, educational outcomes, but also the durable or soft skills. So it's done in various ways. So first of all, I'm sorry you're not sleeping. So congratulations and apologies that you're probably
It's
drinking a
nice of
lot
you
of
to say
coffee.
that. I should plug my wife here because she's been incredible. And also, it's kind of funny because you joked about the talking about Salesforce. We do not get paid to endorse a book, Mom's on Call, but that has been incredible for her. And Henry's sleeping about 12 hours at night now.
Well done. My oldest daughter used Mums on Call, so
Excellent.
it was good for her as well. But we won't tell you that there are some regressions coming that,
Boy.
you know,
Okay.
you kinda just live through, so just buckle up, Stephen.
Thank you. I'll be
But,
prepared.
you think about your own children, you give them tasks around the house. They learn. There's a lot of research coming up about just helping with home tasks are a great way. Having part-time jobs, you're learning how to get there on time. When our kids take on leadership roles at the Learning Lab, they're responsible for things. They're learning how to lead other people. They're learning how to work in teams. So we have structured a lot of our programming so that they're getting those experiences so that they're learning them as they go. We hope they learn what they don't like even more than what they do like. So we want them to try things on, we want them to fail. We want them to not be good at things and then say, it's okay to not be good at that. Here's what you are good at. And that's a durable skill. If you don't know how to fail, if you don't, you think about first gen students that go to college on scholarships. They think they want to do X, they get there, they fail one class, which is designed to weed out kids, and they don't know where to go from there. They leave with 1 year of debt, they don't, or worse, they can't change majors and they don't like it, but they did okay academically because they're worried about losing their scholarship. So we want kids to fail, to try things on. Failing is a best life lesson. And so we want them to feel good about that. Part of it is just having the mentors there to say, you didn't do well in that. Good. You learned something from that. What did you learn? And so, like, helping them understand that when we fail, we learn. So, those are just a couple of examples of things that our students are learning to be tenacious, to be pick themselves up, to move on. I think one of the greatest things is working in teams. Technology, and obviously we're focused on STEM and STEAM, but technology is a great tool. But the Surgeon General has told us that loneliness and isolation is the greatest challenge kids have right now. So when we thought we could reach more kids by utilizing technology, our board, especially after COVID, said, no, let's focus on the physical space, bringing them into community so that they have a community that they trust. They have mentors. And so, just being in community with other kids is a great life durable skill. You're learning conflict resolution. You're learning how to share, to cooperate. So, and because it's choice and they don't have to come to the learning lab, I think those lessons are even better than when they learn them other places.
Awesome. Thank you for touching on that. I want to shift to another area of the foundation, which is TGR Live. And as I understand it, the proceeds from TGR Live go back to fund a lot of these programs that you talked about. Is that correct?
That is correct. And that is an amazing team.
Yeah, and to the kind of second part with that before you go deeper is what strikes me as really great about your model is you're figuring out ways to create earned revenue that is aligned with the overall organization itself, right? And
Mhm.
funnel that back in, and earned revenue is so important for nonprofits. So tell us about, TGR Live and how that helps fuel all these various programs that we touched on in the learning labs.
Yeah, so they are an amazing event team, and they run 2 PGA Tour events. So we just finished the Hero World Challenge down in the Bahamas, and it was an incredible event, and that team, TGR Live, runs that. So I'm very, very blessed to work with some really talented event people and fanatical golfers themselves. And then we also run the Genesis Invitational, which is a signature event and one of Tiger's signature event. Very different event, but both provide tremendous revenue for us. They are a supporting organization. And then we run an event that is up in the Monterey area that is Pebble Beach. And a lot of the golf courses up there, which if you've been up there, you know how
Been once.
spectacular that is.
Yes.
And so that's a little bit more of a traditional nonprofit event. Hero World Challenge and Genesis are not nonprofit events. It is definitely a blend between a corporate and with a nonprofit beneficiary. And then we do one in New York at the beautiful Liberty National Golf Course, and that's our Nexus Cup. And we're looking to add to that portfolio of events. They are a supporting organization underneath the foundation because their work is very different. So they do have their own legal structure, but they report directly to the foundation, and all of the proceeds benefit the foundation. I believe the V Foundation has a similar model for their events.
Awesome. What, from your perspective, being a leader of the organization, inevitably, when I'm speaking with CEOs and executive directors, they all might have a unique leadership style. I'm curious, going back to the different organizations that you were at and now here at TGR, what are some of the lessons you've learned that have helped allow you to become a good leader? And what can you share regarding that?
I think it's a daily process because every organization and every staff member is different. Every member of my senior leadership team needs different things, wants different things from their leader. And so I think it's learning how to be flexible and mobile. Also, the majority of our staff are very different than other generations. They want to have more information, they want to have more transparency. So I think it's leaders today have to be so aware of what their teams need and flexible, but still making sure that they don't go down paths that long term could hurt back to the mission creep. Lots of staff members have lots of different ideas and thoughts, but I do think it's maintaining that flexibility And then just really wanting every one of your team to be successful. So if I lost a team member, but I knew that is something they really wanted to do and we had helped prepare them for that opportunity, I think it's probably the greatest feeling for any leader is that you've helped your leaders grow and you've passed it and paid it forward.
Awesome. Coming now, that was, from respect to the team. Obviously, the structure of a nonprofit is different than a for profit. And with respect to the board being a critical component, and look, they have from just a pure nuts and bolts, they have a duty for governance, fiduciary
Mm.
responsibility. I've interacted with a lot of nonprofit leaders that have really struggled because they've had the wrong board members and it's created mission creep, or they've had board members that weren't, willing to roll up their sleeves and help out and time, talent, treasure. Um, in other areas. So I'm curious from your perspective, if you want to give specifics, that's fine too. But at the different organizations and then at TGR, like what have you found are elements that make a board really successful? And what do you look out for in board members to know that they're the right fit?
So I believe that boards, there's a direct correlation. If you look at the success of that organization, there is probably a very strong board behind it. If you look at an organization that maybe is struggling, it probably is reflected in the board. So these boards and these nonprofits are force multipliers. And so it's really important that you have the right board members on your board. It's tough though, it's a chicken and egg thing because if you don't have the right leader, they're not going to help recruit the right board. So there's been a lot of debate. Do you go strengthen the board first because they're going to make sure the right leader's in that seat? Or do you go get the right leader so they build the right board? But the stronger the board, the more money that's raised, the better the mission, the more they push back. I have a very engaged board and they push back with me all the time. Like, what about this? Why haven't, what can we really do that? So they push back all the time and they want full transparency. That's what you want from a board. You want to make sure that they know the business and that they can do it. I think what happens for the nonprofit sector is that sometimes the board members don't always take the time to learn and understand the business model. And then their expectations are not realistic. And so I'll give the example of fundraising versus sales. There's an element of sales in fundraising, but it's very different. If I was in a corporation, I would say like let's go we're going to develop a new product. We're going to pour millions and millions of marketing dollars in it and we know we're going to generate revenue because we did the research and we know the market wants this product. And it's just not like that in fundraising. You've got to build it. People sometimes give $10,000 gifts before they give $100,000 gifts. It sometimes takes 24 months to get $1 million gift. So it is a building process. Now, do we often sometimes have the right relationships and get gifts quicker? Yes, but it really is a systematic building of relationships. It's appealing to people's hearts as well as their heads, and they're not getting a product. So they're not buying something. They're giving because they've been inspired, because they want to be part of creating societal change. So the board understanding that you can't just go and invest and hire 20 new development staff. If there are other fundamental things, 2 years from now, when those 20 staff haven't given them the ROI, then they go like, oh, let's lay all these people off.
Mhm.
So, really encouraging board members to really understand, ask questions, pledges, revenue is different. It's not just unrestricted revenue. If revenue is restricted for a certain purpose, then you can't operate it of it. Do you have the right mix of operating revenue as well as restricted revenue? So there's so many things that a board really needs to understand so that they can give good direction and ask the right questions.
Awesome. On a personal note, I'm curious, just you had mentioned, in this episode that you have children yourself, right? Where do you connect deepest? And is there if there's I understand, you're helping children, so there's probably, confidentiality or sensitivity to that. But is there an anecdote or something that you've seen firsthand, for example, at the Learning Lab in Anaheim that really moved you personally?
Yeah, so I'll go back and give you a couple of examples. When I was in college, I began working in under-resourced communities, and you've been to Toronto, there's this wonderful little island called Center Island, and it was a field trip, and we took all the kids to Center Island, and this young man named Sean just absolutely went nuts when it was time to go home. He melted, literally melted. And I think we learned later that it was because there were things happening at home. It was the best day that child had probably ever had, and that cemented my passion for helping those young people. And then I think it's watching actual generational change. So I'm the first in my family to go to college. I'm the first in my family to graduate from high school. So it's helping those young people embark on things that they've never seen. I like to say that kids can't be what they can't see. And when you see a young person meet somebody from a big corporation who's doing something that they think they might be passionate about, their eyes light up in a different way because they're like, I could see myself in those shoes. And then when they get to ask that person questions about how they got there, that's tremendously motivating. And then when you see your alumni come back and say, I have 3 kids and they're all going to college, and so it's the generational change. So I think it's like watching kids discover that there's a bigger, better world out there. I think it's watching the generational change that can happen. And I think it's watching their eyes light up when they find what they love and they can actually envision themselves in that.
Thank you for sharing that. On that theme, as we round out this episode, Cindy, I'm curious, what are the ways, if individuals are listening to this, can they get involved both as a volunteer, a supporter, maybe they work for a corporation that, has a passion for the type of work you're doing. How could people find your organization and in what ways can individuals support your efforts?
Yeah, the other thing we built over the year is that each one of our learning labs has their own social media channels and they have their own websites. So you can go and find the TGR Learning Lab Anaheim, TGR Learning Lab Philadelphia, and you can follow those. You can get monthly newsletters so that you know what's going on there. And then our main website is tgrfoundation.org. And there you can access those learning labs, but you can also learn about the programs, how programs are being developed, how you can help us develop new programs, how you can financially support either a local learning lab or the general work of the foundation to try to grow and scale into new markets.
That's awesome. And can you just touch on briefly to the individual that's moved by this? It looks like there's volunteer opportunities as well.
Yeah. So in our career area, there's volunteer opportunities where you can come in and talk about your career. There's opportunities for after school help and tutoring. So, you could work with your local learning lab to figure out what volunteer opportunities might best fit your expertise. And then, of course, we do background checks on anyone who goes anywhere near our young people. So just know that you would have to go through a process.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on this episode of the Charity Charge Show, Cindy. Thank you to our listeners that continue to tune in.